Hello there, I'm Guildmaster Dan, and welcome to my humble beginnings as a YouTuber. I'm here today to bring to you the first episode of my new show called The Fourth Wall, dedicated to sharing advice to tabletop game masters. Because something I found is that a lot of new game masters, or ones that don't get to talk to others a lot, run into problems that they're not really sure how to handle. And since I've been a game master for a number of years now, as well as have attended multiple game master workshops where we talk about a lot of these problems, I thought I'd take from my experience and what I've heard how other game masters deal with these problems, and shared some of those with you guys out there. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Today we're going to be talking about how to introduce non-gamers to tabletop role-playing games. The most difficult question, and more often than not the first question that a non-gamer asks, is, what do you actually do for a tabletop role-playing game? How do you role play? Um, most most people will equate it to, say, playing a video game or a board game, which is pretty close. I think there's also some acting and party game thrown in there as well. Um, but perhaps some of the best ways to introduce them is through another game. Because if you try, I mean, it's very tempting to bring that significant other or that friend that you want to introduce to your group into the game, and bring them into a session and let them sit down and try playing. Though there are some advantages to that strategy. I mean, they'll get to see your group interact and see how it can be a really fun time getting together with a group of friends every week to play a game. But at the same time, it can be very overwhelming for non-gamers. I mean, something that you have to keep in mind is that, when you're bringing someone outside in and you hand them a character sheet that's stacked full of numbers and tables, and you give them a bunch of these weird shaped dice they've never seen before, and then throw down 3 or 4 books in front of them and be like, okay, we're going to play a game. That's very daunting. I mean, think of that like you're going to a class for the first time. If your professor came in like, okay, here's your syllabus, and here's the 4 books you're gonna need. You're gonna need to use these tools, and just throws them all on the desk. And you need to be ready to go by next week. Or actually, we're gonna have class right now. And we're gonna be using all of these. That's really that's really intimidating. Like you would look at him like he's freaking crazy. So a lot of people come in. It's very easy for them to get burnt by those rules and kind of feel like an outsider during that first session. Um, there's there's ways that you can make that better. For example, if you're going to go that route, I would recommend bring the person in, give them their character sheet and everything, but have someone else do all the rolling and all the mechanical stuff for them. Just focus on the role playing from that player. Just ask them, describe the scene, ask them what they want to do, because the role playing part's the core part of the game. And just let somebody else worry about everything having to do with rules. That way, the non gamer doesn't have to worry about learning how they do things. They just say what they want to do, and they go about the process of doing it. And maybe you do that for a few sessions until they start picking up the rules on their own, instead of expecting them to start learning the rules from day second one. Um, Now, another way that you can go about introducing them that I feel will get you a lot less resistance and be a much more natural way for them to proceed into the game or into tabletop RPGs in general is, segue them in. Use another game instead of your Dungeons and Dragons or your Call of Cthulhu. For example, we talked about how those rules can be very intimidating because there's a lot of them, and expecting them to know them right off the bat is kind of ludicrous. So what you can do, though, is you can maybe take them right into an RPG, but use a real rules light one. Use one that focuses a lot more on role play or is a lot more free form. For example, 2 great indie RPGs that work great are Cat from designer John Wick, which focuses really on the role play and really on the idea of what it means to be a house cat protecting their owner from invisible monsters. That game's just all about having fun with that idea, and that has a really easy way into it. Or even PAX, the Pocket Adventuring card system from Dorkman Games. That's another real rules light RPG. It's fantasy RPG, so maybe that's a great way to introduce them to D&D is maybe play a session of that first, but everything's based around cards and 1d2, so it's real rules light and easy to go with. Or, instead of introducing them to the role-playing side of it, maybe you feel they would do better with kind of getting a crash course on the rules and not having to worry about the role-play. Maybe you run a very combat-heavy game and you really want your players to know the rules. Well, in that case, my suggestion would be find yourself a board game that tries to emulate role-playing games, such as Descent: Journeys in the Dark from Fantasy Flight Games. That's a great game for that. I've played that game and I've literally thought, wow, this is like Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 combat and dungeon crawling, without any of the role playing. Another great game, it would be from the same company, Fantasy Flight Games, Arkham Horror. That's another great game that kind of introduces you to the ideas and maybe some mechanics you might get used to moving around and making skill checks and whatnot. Those are great ways to introduce them, say, to rules over the role playing. And maybe you can use one night try, or for a few nights try out Talisman. Or Talisman's another great game, by the way, also from Fantasy Flight Games. I'm starting to notice a pattern here. But maybe introduce them to Descent, play that a couple of nights, and then maybe take them to like a rules light RPG so they can get the role playing down. So that way, when you bring them into your Dungeons & Dragons group or your Call of Cthulhu group or your Vampires group, they'll see that character sheet and they'll see those rules and they'll be able to draw comparisons to those easier experiences that they had before, and it'll be a much more natural experience for them. They were a little bit prepared for all these rules and all these new experiences because they have some experience to draw off of now. My suggestion is try it that way. Try and segue them in. That way it'll be much easier on your players and they won't feel overwhelmed sitting down for that first night. They'll be much more prepared coming in and will probably be a stronger player in that first session. They'll have a better concept of what they're doing. That's pretty much how I would recommend introducing a new player to tabletop RPGs. Segue them in. It's real easy. And now I've gotten this far, I wasn't sure how to end this. Well, anyway, so yeah. Shit. I really don't. Oh well. I got like 6 minutes into this, and then I hit the end of the episode, and I didn't know what to do. Oh man. Okay, maybe I can just cut this off. You guys wouldn't mind, would you? So, if you have a significant other or a friend you want to add to your RPG group, segue them in, they'll thank you for it. There's a lot of different games you can use for that, even beyond the ones that I mentioned. If you know of one, or if you disagreed with something I said, or even if you had a suggestion to make on how I can improve the quality of my videos, please leave a comment below. I'll make sure to leave the websites of the games I did mention in my comments. Look for new videos on Sunday. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.